Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show where two idiots pretend to know what they're talking about a random
Anything.
assortment
Yeah.
of crappy subjects that nobody is actually interested in but us.
It's also called Super Lunch Bros, which
Yes,
we
that too.
rarely say. Haha.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on Spotify or the Podbean app, there is a video up on YouTube. Go like and subscribe. Leave comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to hear in the future. And yeah, that's it. Let's get started. So we had another fight.
We did. I just watched it this morning.
All right. A couple notes. Did you watch the prelims?
Nope, I just saw the main card.
Okay, so on the prelims, there was two fights that stood out to me. One was this guy, Brandon Royval versus Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott was ranked in the top 15, and Brandon Royval was this is his debut fight in the UFC. So how did you feel, before we get into this, how did you feel about the interviews being outside the cage and distant like that?
It was weird.
I agree.
Yeah, but I would say this was actually weirder than the Florida ones, watching it. For some reason, it just had a weirder vibe. I don't know.
I didn't like it. I didn't like those interviews. I would have, I said it during the broadcast, but I would have almost preferred they just do no octagon interview and just do the post-fight interview how they normally do, where they're
just save it all for the press conference.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so he ends up finishing Tim Elliott in round 2 with a submission, and great performance. He looked fantastic. Again, this is his UFC debut, and after the fight, he was in tears, and DC was asking him how he felt about it, and he basically was just kept being really hard on himself. He's like, "Hey, listen, I'm a striker. I should have finished him. This isn't what I was trying to do. This isn't going to get me the bonus, and I'm going to have to go to work this weekend." He's like, "I have to go to work tomorrow." He's like, "I'm trying to change my life here. Like, I'm trying to make money, and I got to go to work. Like, I have to work tomorrow. Like, and he was like, I have to go to work tomorrow because I didn't perform well enough." And you can say what you want about a person competing in a sport and whether or not they deserve money to do that sport, but it's regardless of all that other stuff, it was kind of heartbreaking to see that. Yeah. Like someone in what we would all consider the elite organization in MMA. Basically saying like, I didn't compete hard enough, therefore I can't do this full time. And, even though he got a fantastic win over a ranked opponent in his UFC debut,
It's interesting. I don't know. There's a couple good points you brought up. For one, now that I'm thinking about the post-fight interviews, especially in that small arena with no crowd, like, why even have them?
Yeah.
Like, it's almost kind of pointless because usually it's partially influenced by riling up the crowd, saying something to get a reaction. So if you don't have a crowd, like, just don't have a post-fight interview, and especially if you're not going to do it in the cage. Like, everything that is said, if you're going to do it outside the cage, can just be said at a press conference. I would just scrap that altogether. Just have hand raised, everyone hugging each other, and then call it.
Exactly. And there's also, they didn't even show him. They weren't even showing replays to the fighter. They didn't have like maybe they could fix that in the next iteration or whatever. But part of the, the octagon interview is like, hey, look at what you just did,
Just have replays at the press conference.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not against them, being socially distanced or whatever, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. Like, I understand the times that we're living in, and that's fine. But it's, if you're not going to do a octagon interview, don't do one. Just do a post-fight interview how you normally would in the press conference. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good way to kick it off before you go to the regular reporters.
So that was the first thing.
That was heartbreaking. And it actually kind of ties into John Jones if you want to talk about that later on, too.
Yes, we can. Second thing on the prelims, Caitlin Chookagian beating Antonina Shevchenko. So this is interesting. I don't have the vastest wealth of UFC knowledge when it comes to the history of all fights ever, like some people do. But I don't know if this has ever happened before, where someone fought someone, lost to them, and then had to fight their sibling the next fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
maybe with Nogueras, has that happened?
Well, because remember Rodrigo was a light heavyweight, and Minotauro was the
That's right.
he was the heavyweight. So maybe with the
But even
Diaz
in Pride,
brothers. See, that's the thing. Like, it could have happened, but this just happened, so I'm gonna remember it.
Yeah.
But Caitlin Chukagian went up for the title fight against Valentina Shevchenko, lost the fight. She did decent. I don't think she had a terrible performance. Just obviously, Valentina is just another level. She's just like,
oh yeah,
3 or 4 steps ahead at all times. And then Caitlin comes out and just smokes Antonina. Like, she takes her down and dominates her for 15 minutes. Great performance by her. And Antonina is no slouch. She's a great fighter. So the disparity in skill levels is really evident in women's MMA, where you'll have someone who just gets smoked by a champion go down and fight another like really good contender somewhere else and smoke that person. There's so much volatility in the female divisions, and there's such the skill disparity is unbelievable.
I wonder how much that's influenced by the camps that they're in. I mean, obviously, like time in, you can definitely tell, but I don't know. I wonder essentially who they're training with, like what camps they're in, what are the fighters that they're training against. I wonder how much of an influence that is for.
Well, it's
trying to come
lot.
Up like that. Yeah.
But you also have to remember, one, it was the flyweight division, so not strawweight, which is by all accounts the deepest women's division in all of MMA. It has the similar vibe to lightweight for men, where it's where you get the most amount of athletes, just the largest pool to pull from, kind of like, like a giant high school versus like a private high school. They have the same skill level because the private high school gets to pick all their athletes and they have very good programs, whereas the giant high school just gets to pick from 4,000 kids, and you're just statistically likely to find some decent athletes in there. So you get this giant pool to pull from and nowhere else for these athletes to go. And it creates this just very deep division. Once you go up higher, it's the same problem as we have in men's MMA. And then also add into that women's MMA is really new, especially at the elite level. We're looking at, maybe I don't want to say Ronda Rousey being in the UFC is the start of women's MMA in popularity, because it's not.
But, like, there's jumps in skill levels. Like, it just it happens in male divisions. It happens in all the divisions. Like, once someone sets that bar, you start to see everyone climbing up to it, and it kind of sets a new bar for the divisions.
Yeah, everybody tries to catch up to the champ, and that has happened, and we've seen it more. Like, if you go to the UFC, 15 years ago, this was more common for the men's divisions, and that's what we're seeing. Strawweight, I believe, has caught up. If by all accounts, I think if you look at the performances that we're seeing at strawweight, the skill sets, the stylistic matchups, and all,
Speaking of, on the main card.
Yeah, Mackenzie Dern versus Hannah Cifers. So I'm not as high on Mackenzie Dern as a lot of other people. When you miss weight terribly that many times, I get a sour taste in my mouth. It's disrespectful to not just the athlete but the sport. You're essentially saying that you don't have to follow the rules, and it's been called sanctioned cheating. I firmly believe that it's not a good look. It can happen. We all make mistakes. Obviously, she's a woman, so she has other physical limitations, and she has other physical issues that can come up. Obviously, dealing with menstruation, and she had a child. So those things can change how you cut weight, how you cut water. Those things can affect you to a greater degree than on the male side. But it's still a matter of, like, if you take a fight, you can't miss weight. there's a reason it's in place, and she has missed it catastrophically multiple times. Like, that's just unacceptable. So with
It's
that out of the
interesting
way,
that there isn't like more of a suspension punishment, because it is performance enhancement.
yeah,
I mean, and scientifically, you could argue that it's more of a performance enhancement than some drugs you could take if you don't cut weight for a fight or don't cut weight as hard as another person and you miss weight.
yes,
Like, yeah, there's some financial stuff that you face, and yeah, it doesn't look good, but that is almost more of a performance enhancement in some ways than some drugs you could take.
yeah,
Yet you
and
could severely more, like, you get suspended for months or years.
so historically what the UFC has done, on the extreme end, they'll cut people, which happened to Anthony Rumble Johnson. You know, he missed weight by like 6 pounds trying to cut down to welterweight. Like, Jesus. Yeah, he's coming back at heavyweight. So, like, just to show you the extremes of the human body, good grief. Yeah, you know, and he made his way back. But the more common punishment that you'll see, outside of the obvious 20% pay going to your opponent, is the fact that they will give you a suspension of sorts. Well, no, they'll give you a suspension of sorts by taking you out of the division. They'll say, like, they did it to Johnny Hendricks. They did it to Kelvin Gastelum. They threatened to do it to Henry Cejudo.
They threatened it with Yoel too.
Yes.
Yeah.
They told Yoel, like, dude, it's part of the game, and I understand that the system is not perfect, and I don't agree with weight cutting. I don't think it should be a part of MMA as it stands now. I think being in healthy shape and losing weight for a fight can go hand in hand, and that's fine, you know, especially if you let yourself go in the off season per se. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. But a water cut is asinine. It's just stupid. There is no logical reason that you would cut water before a fight. Outside of making the weight, give me a good reason why you should dehydrate yourself before you're trying to kill another person and not be killed by that person.
No, there's no reason. I mean,
exactly.
It's a strategy. It's not a reason.
It's stupid. It's dumb, and they should get rid of it. And we've talked about this to ad nauseum, and we don't have to talk about it again. All that being said, you know, she looked great. You know, she looks like she shored up her striking. It looks more crisp. She threw a nasty right hand. There wasn't much offense that came from her. To be honest, there was a lot of grappling work that got done. Cyphers got on the inside. They did a lot of dirty boxing and clinch work. Then, you know, it kind of went to the ground a little bit, and Cyphers just made one mistake, and you saw a knee bar, which is very uncommon in the UFC, mostly because people just don't put themselves in that position, and it's a risky maneuver, and because you're dedicating your entire upper body to someone's leg, exposing you to punches and elbows, and you're not putting yourself in a great position to advance positionally. That's a weird sentence, but you know, Cyphers just didn't make the right move, got caught in a knee bar, and that was it. Mackenzie Dern coming out on top yet again, and she made weight. So I can't complain about this. Get 2 more of these performances, and maybe we can talk about putting her in not title contention, but a title eliminator fight.
Yeah.
But she needs to make weight. If she misses weight one more time on her way, like, that's, as far as I'm concerned, I know the UFC doesn't work like this, but dude, if you miss weight, that means you cannot fight for the title. Because if that happens when you go for a title fight, you are no longer eligible to get the belt.
Yeah, washes the title.
Look what the shit that happened with the men flyweight division. With Joseph Benavidez, that last fight where he got knocked out. Nobody has a title now because of that shit. It's stupid. If you have a history, if it's a one-off, you know, or it happens, it can, you know, you miss weight by like half a pound, and you know there's extenuating circumstances. Obviously, like I said, people make mistakes, and we can forgive those things. But when it seems like, one, you're big for the division, and you know you're big for the division, and then 2, you don't even try to cut, and you miss weight by 4 pounds multiple times. No. Like, you're not in title contention. You can't Like you have to show that you can make weight. Like and with championship weight too, that means you need to be on. No half-pound allowance.
I wouldn't mind a policy to where if within 5 fights, if you miss weight twice, you're forced into the higher division, like just a standard across the board. Like, because yeah, missing weight once in 5 fights, like, yeah, it can kind of be forgotten. But if you miss weight twice within 5 fights, I could see like just an automatic strike of, all right, cool, you're moving up a weight class if you want to keep fighting.
Yeah, and it's like it didn't happen this time, and I know we're kind of harping on this a little bit. So
and I'm not really even talking about it in reference to her, but it's something that has happened.
And here's the biggest thing: also fouls. But this all ties together. It's one of those things where everybody remembers the win, and nobody remembers the rule breaking. Nobody remembers that unless it was so egregious that the win got taken away. But even in some cases, that doesn't matter. Everybody talks about the time John Jones knocked out DC. He didn't. It was a no contest. He didn't win.
Yep. The only way you really get remembered is if you basically do what Travis Brown did to Matt Matrian and, have his eyes swell up to the size of a baseball. Like, that's the only way you remember it, is because it's crazy.
You and I remember that, but to be honest, if he won another fight after that or 2 more fights and got a title, nobody would mention that. No one would be like, oh, remember the only reason he got this is because he poked the guy in the eye. No one would give a shit. That's the problem. That's the problem with these fouls. It's the punishment is contained to within that fight, right? Unless it's, like I said, repeated over time and you're forced out of the division or so egregious that you lose the fight. Everything is so contained in that one fight, in that one instance. The punishment is not severe enough to make you not want to do it. It's like grabbing the fence, which happened later in the night versus Blagoy Ivanov versus
that's gonna get talked
Augusto Sakai. Well, we can talk about that now. We don't have to go in order. So, we can talk about the fight. So Blagoy Ivanov wins the first round. He gets kind of pieced.
And it was a good fight all the way through.
Oh, sure.
Which is a shame that happened because it kind of soured it in my mind at that point. Because I was like, well, now I don't really get to see how this fight would have turned out. Yeah.
So you got Blagoy Ivanov, who, if people aren't familiar with him, he's a Bulgarian fighter who was the champion in World Series Fighting. He was a title challenger in Bellator, and he's only lost to the elite in the heavyweight division. Never been knocked out. I don't think in his whole career. Definitely, he hasn't even been. I don't think hasn't been finished in the UFC. The guy is insanely tough. He's taken all the hits from the biggest hitters that he's faced. He got stabbed multiple times and almost died back in his.
DC said like 50 or something.
Yeah, that might have been hyperbolic, but that doesn't matter. The guy was like on his deathbed, and he's come back from that, like tough as nails in all aspects of life. And he beat Fedor in the World Combat Sambo Championship. He beat Fedor in Fedor sport, essentially. It's like, this guy is an insanely good martial artist. He's been on the wrong end of a couple split decisions. And this looked like it could have gone that way as well. It was a very close fight. Like that second round, I gave it to Sakai. That's fine. And then the third round, it's back and forth. And then with a minute and a half or maybe 2 minutes left, Blagoy goes for a takedown against the fence, and he's pulling him down, and it's going there. And Sakai grabs the fence and holds himself up.
Yeah, and you can see the fence flex with, like, he grabbed that fence hard. It was coming down with him almost.
With 500 pounds on that one point on the fence. Yeah, because of those two. So, and then he gets a warning from the ref. But at this point in the game, it's not enough, man. Like, we're talking, if that's the first round.
The momentum of what was happening.
Yes. And I believe that even within the context of a fight, the punishment can change based off of what round it's in. Like, if you're in the very first round, in the very first, 10 seconds, and you do a grab against the fence to hold yourself up and you get a warning for that, I might let that go because you have a whole fight to play out. But the way this one played out, the kind of, I wouldn't say chess match, but the back and forth nature of that third round and how close it was, and the deciding factor of that fight comes down to that guy grabbing the fence.
And here's this is my instinct in the moment, which obviously didn't happen. As a ref, can you put him on the ground?
Yes.
Just put him in his guard on the ground. Like, cool. Put it in a semi-neutral position. You may not get credit for the takedown, but now you guys are going to the ground. And you're on top.
I've seen
I would have like that was where my instinct went because of how blatant and hardcore like, and they had the option to do video review at the time. Like that would have been worthwhile for the ref to see how blatant it was and how much it influenced him
point
not getting
deduction.
taken down. Yeah, and either point deduction or if you're not going to take a point, he at least should have been put on the ground.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like the severity of the penalty can go with the context of the fight, and in that case, you don't even have to penalize him by taking a point. You just say, "Hey, that changed the position," and I'm actually more for that. Like what you just said, that makes more sense to me because no matter what round you're in, no matter what context of the fight, it's applicable every time. If you do something that prevents you from the other fighter imposing their will on you, then whatever was about to happen should happen. Yep. So they put you in that position. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. We're talking about this now. It'll be talked about for another this next news cycle until the next UFC, and then it's forgotten. And nobody's going to remember. It's a loss on Ivanov's record. It might have been a loss regardless. Like I'm not saying that's impossible, but now, no one's going to remember that. Everybody's just going to remember that Sakai won. That's going to be a win on his record. He's undefeated in the heavyweight division in the UFC. That puts him in literally one big knockout or two good fights away from a title shot or a title eliminator bout. Like this is the same thing that happens with every kind of penalty: weight cut or weight misses, eye pokes, kicking someone in the nuts 16 times. Ben Rothwell, grabbing the fence, illegal position, hitting headbutts, all of this stuff that is illegal. If in the context of the fight, something doesn't change that it gives the other fighter an advantage, so he gets the win or a disqualification happens, nobody's going to fucking talk about it. It's never going to be talked about again. And there's no incentive for me not to cheat.
Yeah, this would be a situation where I'd want there to be a review board after the fact that could just declare it a no contest. Because that's kind of like, I would rather that fight get declared a no contest than have it turn out the way it turned out because of a very blatant foul. It's like,
yes,
yeah, it was a close fight. There was some serious shenanigans in the third round that we determined influenced the result, and it was not addressed during the fight, so we're declaring it a no contest. Like that, if there was a review board for those kind of serious infractions, I would be happy with it.
It's again, I'm going to say heartbreaking because imagine this. You spend, this is your life. This is how you pay your family. And now you're getting half of your money, right? Not because of anything necessarily you didn't do or you did, right? You're still going out there.
You did it right. You were getting the takedown.
Yes, you did your job, and you're being failed by the rule set. And to be honest, man, there's no reason not to. Like we joke about it. You see it on Twitter. Like I was talking back and forth with somebody. You get one. It's like everybody jokes. You get one free foul. You get one free foul. So if I use that to hold the fence and not get taken down, why the fuck not?
Would you be in favor of, and this might sound a little football-y, the corners essentially having a challenge flag? Like if the ref makes a call and a corner thinks like, yo, that's a fucked up call based on what we're seeing from the fight, we're challenging it. Like I know that would absolutely cause like a whole realm of stopping a fight and stopping momentum, but like, I don't know. What would you think about something like that?
I don't like that idea because it takes away a lot of the fight. And yes, the momentum has already been stopped, so I wouldn't say that that's why I don't like it. I more don't like it because it's outside interference from people who aren't in the cage. And what I would rather see is the pride system where you get a yellow card. Give him a yellow card. Take his money. Because now there's incentive for you not to do it. Because you could still get that win, right? And yes, in the long run, if you cheat and win enough using this cheating, you're going to end up making more money in the long run. Fine. But here's the deal. I'm going to take your money. Like just like you do when you miss weight. You grab the fence, I'm taking your money. You poke me in the eye, I get 5%. Everything. Like any foul that is committed, I get more money now. Because like what is the incentive right now? Right now, if I'm in a fight, you and me, and you're beating my ass, okay? let's say it's a 3-round fight. I got 2 minutes left, and you go for a takedown, and you're beating my ass. And I know the only way I can win is by knocking you out. And I grab the fence and lift myself up. Why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to lose anyway. Who cares?
That's fair. And also, I mean, at this point for most stuff, can we just get rid of the warning? Like,
yeah, and well, that's what I'm saying.
I would say eye pokes. Eye pokes, I can understand the warning just because the gloves suck. But for grabbing the cage, I feel like you don't need a warning.
Yeah, toes in the cage, I think like
that can be more inadvertent.
Grab them out. Or like when you're on the ground and you're like something gets caught in there, the ref just pulls your fingers out or pulls your toes out. I'm okay with that. I really am. But
if you grab the cage,
yes. Or the
feel
top.
like you can grab the top, grab the cage, grab anything on your surroundings you're not supposed to, grab the gloves.
Yes.
I feel like there just shouldn't be a warning. It's an automatic point.
So I'm like, again, I'm okay with that as well, because that actually gives the win to the person, or a draw. In this case, it would have been a majority draw. One of the judges gave 3 rounds to Blagoy, which
I think the judges are hurting from not having a crowd. I think the judges are hurting really bad from not just having a crowd to tell them who won. Legitimately.
So, yeah, that card, or that judge's scorecard. Again, I'm kind of rooting and talking up Blagoy right now, but his ass did not win that second round. No.
But all 3 rounds to Sky, that was a weird one.
No, Blagoy got all 3 rounds.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was.
Didn't he?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he did. Maybe not. I'm pretty sure he got all 3 rounds. I might be thinking of a different one.
The one thing I've noticed from the no crowd UFCs recently is I feel like it's more obvious when the judges are. It feels like it makes it more obvious that the judges partially rely on the crowds.
When they're inept?
When you take the crowds out of it, then the judges are like, oh, fuck it, 3 rounds to this guy.
I don't know. Like I'm like just breathing and like frustrated because there's so many times, and it sticks in my craw, and I can't be the only one who remembers these things. Like if you're a hardcore MMA fan and you watch every one of these, you remember that shit. Yeah. And the next time when they're running the highlight reel, they're not going to show that. They're not going to show the guy committing a foul to get the win. They're not going to show him kicking him in the nuts, a foul. They're not going to show him missing weight. And I know they're pumping up the fighter.
All it's going to show up is when you look up his Wikipedia page who won that fight.
Exactly.
It doesn't show the foul. It just shows a green or a red mark around that guy's name.
So it's just there's got to be a better way. And I know positive reinforcement does work better. It just does. They've done analytics on it. They've done psychoanalysis, all those things. All the studies show that positive reinforcement works better and over time has a more positive effect on whatever behavior you're trying to teach. It does. Negative reinforcement does work as well, but it's not as long lasting, and it's also not as immediate.
What would you say to like a no foul bonus? So if you go so many fights without having essentially a foul or essentially like a thing from a referee, you actually get a bonus tacked onto your check.
Like a clean fighter.
Like a clean fight bonus. And it's not for like every single fight, but it'd be like, cool, you went this many fights in a row without having any infraction whatsoever. Like that's a positive reinforcement that's easy to do. Yeah, it just puts more money in the fighters' pockets.
I think the reason I brought up the positive reinforcement is because like I couldn't think of a way to positively reinforce this. So I think negative reinforcement is warranted, and it seems like our only option. But I think on the other end, you could. This might already happen behind closed doors and we don't see it. Like we've heard of, we've heard Dana White come out and openly say this multiple times where like when there was a clear like injustice as far as the decision goes, it'll be like
people get taken care of. Yeah.
That guy won that fight. I don't care what happened. I'm treating it as a win and I'm putting him on. Like I don't care about his record. That was a win to me. And we've seen that, with Aldo, the last one with Moraes. He got the loss. I thought it was a close fight and it wasn't a robbery. Rogan seems to think otherwise. Fine. I don't care. It's for me that wasn't a bad decision. I don't know if it was the right one, but it wasn't bad. So but he's gotten two title shots effectively. You know, like they were gonna have him fight Henry Cejudo, and now he's fighting Peter Yan, which they haven't openly said it's for the title, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be. So they're treating it as
so many vacant titles.
That's what happens when the best in your sport take off, like John Jones.
There's some great fights we still got to talk about too, unfortunately.
So Roosevelt Roberts against Brock Weaver, back and forth fight. I actually missed the first round a little bit. I forget what I was doing.
It was fun. But it was just a fun fight all the way through.
Yeah, I feel for Brock Weaver because he's like we talked about him the last time he fought, and he ended up getting it was a DQ win. I feel for him because if there's an underrepresented people in the United States, it's Native Americans, and I'm not for everybody just like that's their whole identity and that makes who they are. Therefore, they should talk about it all the time. But when someone like that who draws a lot of strength and his character from that and brings that to a sport with him, it's like especially with his intensity and like his focus and stuff. It's kind of disheartening to see him go out like that. But Roberts just looked better, man. He just looked better.
I've seen a lot of good stuff from people coming off the Contender Series recently, which Roberts is one of the guys to do that too. And I'd say, like, over the past couple fights that I've seen, whenever I hear that name, like, whenever I hear someone's name get tied to that, I usually end up being impressed, whether or not they win or lose, just with how they come into the fight.
Yeah, they found a lot of good fighters through that. And I think they're doing that the right way. Dana's done that the right way. He knows that there's only a certain amount of fighters. There's only a certain amount in the pool to pull from. He gets them, and then he waits for the pool to fill back up. He's not running the Contender Series 5, 6, 10, 20 years in a row, like the Ultimate Fighter. So he's well. I mean, here's the thing:
we've got great guys from the Ultimate Fighters.
If
you made it into the top 3, like usually we kept seeing your name.
Exactly.
Like Matt Brown, he didn't make it to the finals in the Ultimate Fighter, but no one forgets Matt Brown.
Exactly. It shows that you are one that you're probably fighting in a higher weight class than you will be in the UFC. But also that, week in and week out, you're going against competition and you're coming out on top. And that's how you get it. Like, your resume doesn't need to be as strong to get into the house as it does on the Contender Series or looking for a fight when that was on. You needed to have a name already for those, for Dana White to want you to be involved in that anyway. So I think that's why we're already seeing with the Ultimate Fighter, you're getting more not raw talent, but I would say unknowns who come in and get to show their skill set on the like the big stage. Whereas with the Contender Series and looking for a fight, it's guys who already have a name, and then Dana White brings them in as like, all right, let's see what this guy can do for real.
And I would say even with the Ultimate Fighter, like, yeah, there was a nice big crop of people they bring in, but there's usually like 4 guys in there that clearly had an experience level above everyone else. And you kind of saw that shine through for the most part. Like, there were sometimes there's some
Roy
upsets.
Nelson having 32 fights.
That's an extreme example. But like, there were, you can remember from seasons when you look back and you realize like, oh wow, that guy had a pretty strong skill set and background before he made it into the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah. Or like they were coming from camps where, people already knew that they were ready for it because they were training with people. Yeah.
So, Billy Quarantillo fought. Dude, I'm so excited to see Spike Carlisle fight again. I don't care if he lost. I don't give a crap. That guy,
I don't think either of those fighters lost, honestly. It
was awesome.
It didn't matter what the decision was. They're both getting great fights, and they're both going to have great careers.
Yeah, I gave Spike the first 2 rounds. So I could have seen him getting a decision there, and it's okay. It was close. That second round could have gone either way, and I'm okay with it. But dude, he just came forward. He did like this jumping front kick stomp thing because he was already kind of levitated a little bit off his foot. So when he went for the kick, it came down. So it was, dude, I've never seen that before. Like to start a fight, and he just did not stop.
I feel like he personified what Justin Gaethje said he was gonna do the first time around against Tony. He's like, I got 18 minutes in me.
18 minutes of fury.
Yeah, like that's what Spike did. He just had 18 minutes of fury, and that's what he brought to it. And really, it was more like 8 minutes of fury. But
Well,
for those 8 minutes, whew.
So yeah, like we all saw that he gassed out. But let me say something. He might have not like had his full gas tank till the end, but his scrambles were impeccable. Going all the way to the very end of the fight, he managed to scramble out of really bad positions and just essentially muscle his way out, even though he was tired. That was
and also skill
incredible.
level defense, like
yeah,
his defense was impressive, especially once he was gassed out. Like I was more impressed by the skill than I was his ability just to scramble. Like he was keeping himself in the game.
Yeah, old school Sean Shirk, move forward and like just like kind of fight. Like that was fun to watch.
Fun fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and Billy Quarantillo, he looked good too, man. Like he weathered the storm, did what he had to do, got in good position multiple times, went for submission attempts, and like he managed to do it, man. It was good performance by him. That was so much fun to watch. I want to watch Spike again.
It's not often I love a decision, because but that was a decision that I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm happy it went all the way to the end. I'm almost happy it didn't get stopped, just so I could see them fight all the way through this.
Yeah, I loved it. It was fantastic. Yeah. Ow.
You all right there, bud?
Oh, I thought it was a tick. I've been bike riding a lot, and I went through like this high grass area today. Okay, it's not. It's just dirt.
Dog the other day. That was disconcerting.
Yeah, I mean, if you do regular maintenance on your dog's fur and you like see a tick, it's really not that big of a deal. It's not great.
It was the same day we'd gone to the woods, so it wasn't.
Yeah, you just check them. Check them. All right. How about the main event? Sad, happy, excited, disappointed.
I never know how I feel about Tyron Woodley. I don't know. Like, I feel like he has resting I don't want to be here face.
Oh my god. Yes.
Like that's the way I describe his demeanor in the cage. Like, I know how athletic he is. I know how skilled he is. And I know what he's capable of. And I don't know if it's just the look he has or how he just appears when he's fighting, but he has that just resting, like, I don't really want to be here. I'm just really athletic, so I make my way through this. Like, I don't feel like he really wants to be a fighter.
Yeah, there's I've had my issues with how he spoke before he was champion, saying how he deserved the title and blah blah blah. His run up to the title, he lost to Rory McDonald in pretty convincing fashion, and he just kind of got dismantled. Then he ran roughshod through some competitors and knocked out Robbie Lawler, got the title. Good job. He had some, I would say, less than impressive, but it's really not. It was really just not very interesting title defenses against Stephen Thompson twice and then Damian Maia. So those fights kind of showed.
I think he just had some bad matchups. Like
I don't think they're bad.
He didn't really.
I just don't. They're not bad matchups. It's just if you go against. Here's something that really irked me that he said after. I don't know if it was after the Damian Maia fight or after the second Stephen Thompson fight. He said, "I can't wait to fight another freestyle fighter in here so I can really show my skill set." I know where he's coming from because I've heard him speak about at length like why he did what he did to beat those guys, and he won. He shut down their game. He's coming from Rufus Sport in Milwaukee, very intelligent camp, and he's an intelligent fighter. Yes, he's insanely athletic, but in order to pull off what he pulled off in those fights, he had to be very smart, and like his fight IQ is through the roof.
Also, having that many title defenses in general is a rarity in the UFC. So like, yeah, you gotta commend him for him. Like, regardless of how you feel about how some of his fights went, like he held on to the belt.
It wasn't. I'm never a fan when people are sour after fights. It's not a good look, regardless if you win or lose. There's a certain demeanor he had that it just, I think it might have been what you said. Like he kind of didn't want to be there. And every time he would just have this attitude like, oh, I deserve more. I deserve this. Oh, this shouldn't have gone this way. He was always just like such a negative Nancy all the time, and it's like it's hard to root for someone who's constantly so negative about everything that's going on. When, dude, you're the champion, like, and you won the fight. I understand, like, you've seen reactions. Here, let's look at Tony Ferguson.
I do want to defend him a little bit on this because I think a lot of it came down to money and administrative issues with the UFC at the time when he was champion. Like, if you look at what other people were getting paid that weren't even champions at that time, like I don't know if he handled it the right way, but he definitely had legitimate issues with what was happening between him and the UFC.
So I totally agree, and I'm not putting him down for trying to get paid what he believes what his worth is. I'm not at all. I believe that we've been over this 1,000 times. We'll talk about it again with John Jones. Obviously, we all believe the fighters deserve more money, and it's not just out of thin air that we got this number. We know how much they're paid based off of how much the UFC is making. They give fighters 18% of their profits, whereas other organizations gave closer to 40 or 50%. So even within the industry, they're far and away the lowest paying of the big organizations. It's just he had a disdain for the UFC. He had a disdain for the fans. He had a disdain for his opponents, all of which just came off as he's not a guy that I rooted for. It's like I said, it's hard to root for a guy who's always so negative. Even when he was winning,
it's fair. Like from a fan perspective, he was not. I don't know. I don't think he was attracting fans, especially when he was the champ. I think in the run up, he made a name for himself. But when he was the champ, he was having those organizational issues with the UFC, but he wasn't really doing a lot to help him, at least from a public affairs perspective.
Yeah, I want to look up his record because I think there's a reason why I was especially sour on him, and I think it was because of his build-up. Oh, here's why. He knocks out Josh Koscheck in an incredible performance. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Forward-moving Woodley, right? This is after a loss to Jake Shield, a split decision loss. Okay, fine, whatever. He's no slouch. Yeah. He beats Carlos Condit when Carlos Condit his knee blows out. Right? He loses to Rory McDonald in spectacular fashion. Not spectacular as in he got knocked out, just he got dismantled. Every part of his game was shut down, similar to what happened last night.
Man, I miss Rory in the UFC.
I miss old Rory, but he got in the game real young, man, and he found it looks like he found a different path in happiness. Like he's got a family now, and he's found religion for himself, and that seems to make him happy, and he seems like a pleasant individual who is a very kind
serial killer.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with it. So then here, he beats Dong Hyun Kim with a TKO, spectacular fashion again. Fine, that's stun gun. That's good. That's a good win. Then he beats Kelvin Gastelum. But did he really? He was against the fence. Kelvin Gastelum was pushing him. Kelvin missed weight for this fight. I think, was it in Mexico? No, it was in Vegas. Okay, so I had Kelvin winning that fight. But it was a split decision win for Woodley. Not exactly a spectacular win, right? No one's looking at that fight, giving him... There's no highlights from that fight in any of Woodley's reel because it wasn't a great performance from him, right? And then after that fight, they give him the title shot against Robbie Lawler. And he knocks out Robbie Lawler. Again, great win, great performance. Then he gets the draw, less than impressive fashion against Stephen Thompson. Then Stephen Thompson again, Damian Maia. Then, we forgot, he did knock out Till. Till was another guy who did not deserve that title shot at that point.
Did you submit Till? You submitted.
Oh, you're right. No. He knocked him down to the ground, and then he got the dart stroke. Okay. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So if you look at that buildup, right? He has a loss to Jake Shields, a big win against Josh Koscheck, and a medical stoppage win versus Carlos Condit. Essentially, let's call it a victory. It's a TKO. It's a knee injury. All right, fine. Then a loss to Rory McDonald. Again, a bad loss. A good win against Dong Hyun Kim. A questionable win against Kelvin Gastelum. Then he beats Robbie Lawler. And immediately after that, he starts calling for George St. Pierre. Immediately after that, he's calling for, like, he didn't want to fight Johnny Hendricks. Like, you remember he was supposed to fight Johnny Hendricks?
Right. Remember that.
You know, he didn't want to fight him. He wanted a money fight. His first title defense, he wants a money fight. Now, if you had run roughshod in your division and you knocked everybody out, Conor McGregor style, you're making a name for yourself. You're calling your shot. You're telling them when you're going to knock them out, and you have this Mystic Mac performance every time out. You knock out world-class fighters and get the interim title, and then you knock out the best fighter in that division in 13 seconds, and then you want a super fight. I am okay with that. You have made a name for yourself. You have clearly shown your ability to just dismantle everyone in your division. Go for it. Get your money. Get your money anyways, but more so in that case, like, call your shot. If you have a mediocre run-up, get a title shot, win the title, fine. And he does good. I'm not taking anything away from his title win or his title defenses. They're fantastic. None of that showed me that he is far and away the best in that division. Like, far and away, he's so far ahead of everybody that he needs to go find someone else to make his money. He needs a super fight because no one can compete with him. Clearly, we saw people can compete with him. Split decision, loss, like a loss, a good win, split decision, a loss. Like, dude, this guy, he was calling for things and acting like he deserved so much when, given his contemporaries in the sport who had done so much more, he didn't. It's not that I don't want to say he didn't deserve to ask for that. What I'm saying is it didn't come off very, very well. And then when he was so sour and every time, that's why. That's I wanted to look that up because I remember I had a specific thing in my head that I didn't like, and that was why. He didn't have a spectacular run up to the title shot, and he didn't. I was okay with his wins. I didn't think he lost any of those fights, obviously, and he deserves every one of those, and he got championship money for that. But to sit on the sidelines and demand that the UFC bend to your every will when you have done, in my opinion, nothing spectacular, it's just not going to happen. And then after that, you're going to bitch about it for years. And then you're gonna bitch about your wins, and you're gonna bitch about the next opponent they give you. Dude, come on, you beat him. Quit looking like you're so pissed off all the time. Just be happy. And if you're not gonna be happy, be appreciative that you're in this position that you're in, that you work so hard for, or show the determination to get back out there and say, like, you know what, I didn't show what I wanted to do tonight. I'm gonna make sure I finish the next guy. You know what? This isn't what I wanted. I got the win. I did what I had to do. But next time I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get that win in a spectacular fashion. You know, like.
I think what's missing for him to do that is he's not in it because he likes fighting.
And I think you're right. That makes sense now. Putting all that together.
And I think that's also why he was calling for a super fight, because I don't think he anticipated having a long championship run. I think he understood his level of game of, like, this is how much I want to do this. And he goes to the gym with people that want it more than him. Like, he definitely sees people around him and trains with people and has seen people fight that want it more than him. He knows his athletic level and he knows what he's capable of. So he knew he could hang in there, but I think he wanted his money while he could get it. And I don't think he was planning on having a long UFC career.
I mean,
which I'm fine with. Like, the attitude thing is hard, but also, like, it's that combination of how he gets portrayed because he is going hard against the UFC. Like, there's some ways that kind of ends up.
So
when you go hard against the UFC, it's easy to not look good. It's hard. Like,
if you're gonna play the heel, go at it. He didn't even do that. He was playing like the race card, and he was playing the victim all the time. He was just. And I'm not saying that didn't factor into anything that happened, right? Or that he's not a great fighter. I think he's probably the third best champion in welterweight history, right? You got George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
You got Matt Hughes, Tyron Woodley. I'm I put him up there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But dude, you can't play the victim all the time. It's the same reason people are sick of John Jones's shit. Like every time acting like it's everybody fucking else's fault. John Jones more so, right? He had more egregious things. Tyron Woodley doesn't have the outside the octagon problems. I'm not comparing them a
Tyron
one to
Woodley's
one.
a good person. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. I'm just saying it's that similar attitude to where you're always playing the victim and it's everybody else's fault. Nobody wants to see that shit. Nobody likes that. The people who like that don't watch fighting. Okay? The people who like that are college kids who also feel like they're always the fucking victim. Okay? Like, that's not going to win you fans. That's not going to win you fights. And it's sure as shit not going to win you more money in the UFC. Playing the victim does not do that shit.
For one thing, I definitely think that Kamaru Usman benefited from seeing Woodley and his interaction with the UFC before he got the championship. Because I feel like that's definitely influenced how he's taken it and how he's acted as a champion.
Yeah, Kamaru Usman, he is... For every interaction he's had, the people that he beat to get his title shot initially were not impressive when he was calling for the title. But then he's got impressive wins over the competition he put in front of him, and you can't do that. And he beats Tyron Woodley in impressive fashion. Just puts his will on him, makes him break.
And then has one of the best fights in welterweight history.
Yes, with Colby Covington, who's an incredibly tough fighter. Yeah. He got his jaw broken, and that still didn't stop him. Like, that guy...
absolutely the best two welterweights in the world at the time going toe-to-toe like this, without a doubt.
Like, I've heard people say that, Tyron Woodley had a better performance because he went the full distance with Usman.
Yeah, but he didn't come forward.
No, it's not that he didn't come forward. He didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't hit him.
Kobe and Kamaru, they went at each other.
Tyron Woodley was on his ass for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or maybe more. Yeah, no. He was against the fence or on his ass for the entire fight. I don't think he threw a single punch in like the last 3 rounds.
Yeah. And like I said, he's athletic, he's skilled, but he's got that air of I've already got one foot out the door, or I don't really want to be here. I don't know if that's true.
That's what they said. But that's what they said about his last fight when he's got his rap thing going on. Good for him. He's got his acting that he's trying to pursue. Good for him. Fantastic. I'm more than okay with that. And if he still wants to fight and make money doing that, there are plenty of people that can get their ass whooped by him because he will knock you out if you don't pay attention.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care who you are. Like, he can put you to sleep with that right hand.
It's dangerous every day of the week.
We didn't even talk about Gilbert Burns.
By the way, incredibly impressive performance too. I'm excited to see that dude keep coming up.
I remember seeing him against Cowboy Oliveira. And Oliveira cracked him early. This was when he was still fighting at 155, and Oliveira was still fighting. That was Oliveira's. Yeah,
you make 155.
Oliveira stepped up on short notice and made weight. Yeah, he cracked him, and he almost finished Gilbert. And I remember thinking, they're talking about Gilbert like he's the second coming, and I'm like, I don't think so. He's coming from Vitor's camp, and he looks kind of shitty. He's slowly put together a nice string of wins here. I don't think everybody's giving him so much credit for the Damian Maia win. I mean, okay, I'm not trying to downplay the guy's victories here, but knocking out Damian Maia, while difficult,
is not the most impossible thing in the world.
No, and it also played into his skill set, where he could handle himself on the ground, and he's also hard hitting. And Damian Maia, an elderly competitor who we really saw what his strength was, is just imposing his jiu-jitsu will against you and kind of breaking you down that way. So Gilbert Burns slowly on a tear here, and I think he has the skill set to beat Usman. I think he has the skill set to beat Kobe. I think
I was thinking after this fight, I want to see him and Kobe. I would like to see him and Kobe for essentially the next championship fight.
I'd like to see him versus Robbie Lawler.
That'd be a good one too.
Robbie Lawler has probably the best takedown defense in that division outside of Tyron Woodley. He has the hardest hands. He just hits the hardest and one of the most unbreakable wills. Like a lot of these guys in that division now, like Usman, Colby, and Robbie, just they are 100% will. You can't break them, man.
And also, Jorge Masvidal.
I don't put him in the same category of not breakable. I think it's not that he breaks like and he gives up. It's that you can paralyze him.
Put it on you. Yeah.
You can paralyze him because he can overanalyze things and he loses a lot of split decisions because of his inactivity. Lately, not so much. He's been putting it on people, and that's fantastic. And I'm all excited for him versus Usman. That would be an interesting fight. I want to see if Usman can take him down. But yeah, Burns is a tough test for anybody in the welterweight division. Colby probably doesn't want to fight him because, I mean, what does Colby have to gain from fighting Burns? You know, Colby's already talked about kind of moving away from fighting anyway and wanting to move to wrestling. Like I don't see him taking that fight lightly. I don't know if he's going to take. It's not a big money fight. Gilbert Burns doesn't really have a name.
If anything, I'd say Kobe Masvidal would be.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. I mean, they train at the same camp. I don't think they hate each other per se, but Masvidal really doesn't like anyone.
If he's fighting you, he doesn't like you.
He doesn't like anybody. Even if he has respect for you, he doesn't like you. It's like he's one of the. Again, he's not like a person that I see myself like wanting to hang out with. He's not someone I would surround myself with. But he's a very genuine person. I've said this before. Yeah. I appreciate that he's a genuine person. Like if he talks shit, it's because he feels that way. He's really talking shit, right? Like he wants to kill you. If he says I'm going to kill you, he's trying to kill you. If he says he doesn't like you, he don't like you. Like he's real. So I like that about him. But I also feel like he's the guy who he always feels like the world's against him and everybody's out to get him. Like those people are exhausting to be around. They just are, man.
Given how he came up, though, like some people have been out to get him, and
I'm not saying that it's not warranted. What I'm saying is like I've known people like that, where like no matter what you say, they take offense to it, and like everybody's always out to get me, and you're talking shit about me and my family. I'm like, I was joking, but yeah, sure. Like we could go down this route if you'd like, like it's like I said, I appreciate him for being genuine, and his skill set's amazing. He's got great takedown defense. He could probably offensive wrestle if he needs to. He's got the power. He's got the cardio, and he's got the mindset to take anybody out. So Gilbert Burns versus Masvidal would be interesting. I think that would be fun. Yeah, 170, dude. There's just another log jam again.
It's fun.
Well, it's fun for us, but dude. There's no clear cut. Like if you had to say right now, who's most deserving of a title shot? And I mean most deserving in like meritocratically. Who has done the most to recently show you that I deserve the next title shot? Like if you look at the rankings here.
That's hard. That's maybe Masvidal.
I don't think so. So in the division right now, you've got Colby. Mm-hmm. So you got Tyron at 1, Colby at 2, Jorge at 3, Leon Edwards.
I was forgetting about Leon Edwards. He is
You got Stephen Thompson, Gilbert Burns, Damian Maia, Michael Chiesa, Rafael dos Anjos. Now we start getting further down the list. So if I'm looking at this, you might be right. Jorge Masvidal but dude, his last win for the BMF belt against an unranked Nate Diaz.
I don't really.
Oh, not unranked. Top 10, whatever. Yeah. But a 2-year layoff, Nate Diaz, who wasn't in contention, like.
And then it was a medical stoppage too. Maybe Leon Edwards. Honestly, yes. Like if I had to really break down who in those top 5 has it put together the most, because Leon Edwards is actually on a tear.
So you got Leon Edwards and Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson, I believe, has done enough to show that he's...
Leon Edwards is on an 8-fight win streak.
Yes.
In welterweight. Including over Donald Cerrone, Gunnar Nelson,
was supposed to
Rafael
fight
dos Anjos in his past 3. Yeah, I got to give it to Leon Edwards. Like, he should be fighting for the belt next.
He was supposed to fight Tyron Woodley, but because of the lockdown, he couldn't leave the country, remember? So Thompson's last fights, okay, split decision. So Thompson beat Masvidal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he beat him. Anybody who says he didn't beat him, you weren't watching the fight. He
lost to Anthony Pettis and Darren Till too recently.
He did not lose to Darren Till. That was a split decision. That was bullshit.
Oh yeah, I remember that fight now.
He won 3 rounds. Clearly won 3 rounds, and at worst it should have been a draw, but it was in England. Like so,
okay.
Till got the home field advantage there. So I don't. That's what gave Till the. I think that's what gave Till the title shot, right? Yeah, I think so. But I remember that fight. I watched it more than once. Thompson won that fight. But let's say, okay, it's a split decision loss. Then he gets knocked out by Pettis, and then he just dismantles Luque. So in that division, he's coming off of a win. Okay, I would put him in a one fight away from the title shot because he never was that far away from it to begin with. I mean, he loses. I
would much rather watch Stephen Thompson versus Kamaru Usman than Stephen Thompson versus Tyron Woodley again. Like that.
Yes.
Kamaru Usman versus Stephen Thompson is an interesting fight. I might go, all right, so here's my brains at.
Leon Edwards, number 1 for sure.
Yeah. I might go Stephen Thompson versus Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. And then whoever wins Thompson versus Burns fights Kamaru Usman.
Or the winner of that fight, if Usman.
Yeah, the winner of that fight fights after.
Yeah. So, and it's not that Masvidal hasn't done enough recently to show his worth. Like, obviously he has. But if you look at the last couple fights, like he beat Ben Askren. It's not a fluke. It's not a fluke. It's a 1 in a million shot, but it's not a fluke. He planned that. Okay. But I don't remember him having impressive wins.
He's on a 3-fight win streak right now, though. Like, and his last loss was to Stephen Thompson as well. So I don't know.
Yes, he lost to Stephen Thompson. I remember he knocked out Darren Till. That was a good performance. And so
I would say either Jorge Masvidal or Stephen Thompson versus Burns. Like either of those two, I think they're close, but they're just not quite at that title point.
Right now, Leon, and remember, he was Jorge Masvidal punched. Remember the 3-piece in the soda thing? He did that to Leon Edwards. That was the guy he punched.
That's right.
Yeah, so they have history, and I'd be okay with them fighting because, like they're both in similar situations. I put them against each other, but they really want Masvidal to fight Usman, and it's because of the BMF belt. It's because of pomp and circumstance. It's because of
pay-per-view numbers. Like that.
Yeah, and that's fine.
People want to watch Masvidal.
And I'm okay with that. Yeah. But Burns being in that division, I think he's a bad matchup for a lot of people there. I think Stephen Thompson, it would be interesting. That's a hard fight to call.
I think that'd be a good test for Burns. Because he has some good wins over some good people, but I think Stephen Thompson would be a really good resume if he beat Stephen Thompson, Tyron Woodley, and had that back to back. I think that would put him at a very good place to say, hey, I definitely deserve this next title shot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. That's good. All right, speaking of sourpusses, John Jones is in the news again.
John Jones is in the news again. He is
seems
not
like
arrested,
we do this
though,
every week.
But he's not arrested at this moment, as far as I know.
No, he's not. And I'm more indifferent on this one. He's not doing something. Chael Sonnen's take on it, if you haven't seen it, is hilarious. He just calls him a doofus over and over again. He's like, "You're a doofus." He's like, "Why would they give you more money? You signed a contract." Like he just rips into him. He does not like John. So I have softened on his on John Jones. Like I said, I've become less critical of him and more wanting him to get help and find peace in his life, really, because I feel that everybody we talked about this at length. Everybody around him has failed him, and they failed miserably. He is someone who the sky's the limit in his life, and people really failed him. They did not help him when he needed it the most. So what he said was, we can go through the tweet history, but basically It ended, I think this morning or last night when he was like, release me from the. He's like, I'm release me from the UFC, and I am vacating the light heavyweight belt. So he wanted to fight against Ngannou. They both agreed to it via Twitter for whatever that's worth. Anderson Silva and Conor McGregor also agreed to fight each other via Twitter. We can talk about that too.
Twitter's not a contract.
No, and neither is a verbal or people
Yeah.
agreeing. Like, guess what? If the UFC doesn't want you to fight, you ain't fighting.
Yeah.
Like, you can agree all you want. It don't matter.
Listen, if two people wanted to fight, cause them to fight, Fedor and Randy Couture would have fought back in their heyday.
Oh, God, missed out.
I know.
Fedor versus Brock Lesnar. Ah!
Either way, or get sidetracked. Yeah.
Yeah, so John Jones, he goes back and forth on Twitter with Dana White. Well, not back and forth, really. It was more just forth. And then Dana was speaking in an interview saying that John Jones wanted $30 million. And then John Jones refuted that, saying, I never asked for money. He's like, we never even got to talk about money. You said no. He's like, I want to rediscuss things. And Dana White said no. But then also John Jones said, show him the texts I sent him. Well, if you sent him, then you could show him. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. And all right, here, let's get this a little bit more organized. How do you feel about Ngannou and John Jones wanting more money for this fight? How do you feel about it?
I'm always in favor of fighters wanting more money, but I also think fighters need to, like, I think they keep approaching it from the wrong way. Because they come at it essentially in an individualistic style, and especially from outside, like a contract negotiation point of view. Like, there's no coordinated effort. Obviously there's no union, but there's not really like a coordinated effort.
Don't need to talk about that again.
Yeah, there's no managers getting together. Like, there's no real like, hey, this is how we're gonna go about it. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention to like the Dak Shepard, Patrick Mahomes, or no. Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, yeah. And fucking Watson from the Texans. Like, essentially all three of them are right now in kind of like a waiting game to see who's going to strike first on the contract to decide how the other people are going to negotiate their contracts. And I sit back and I look at that and I'm like, why don't their managers just talk to each other? Like, why don't all three of their managers, I mean, I'm sure they, but like, just sit down in a boardroom and be like, hey, this is what we're all going to ask for. This is how much we're going to push it up. And by all of us doing it at the same time or doing it together, we're probably all going to get it because we're setting that price point. So like, UFC fighters are they're just bad at negotiating because the UFC is able to essentially angle them and keep them as a singular, like, negotiating one-on-one.
Well, okay, all right, hold on. Before we go too much further, remember there's an NFLPA, there's a Players Association, right? But I'm not speaking to a union per se. What I'm saying is they come to an agreement with the owners, so there might be something, some language in the contract that they signed, the NFLPA, that they signed that says that they can't do that, essentially driving up market prices by communicating with each other, kind of how like companies can't do that.
True. I know if there's ever a contract over $10 million a year, then the Players Association has to look at the contract to make sure it's like, there's different things depending on the size of your contract where the Players Association automatically has to look at it in the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's a whole bunch of back end stuff that they do with contracts, but either way, like, the UFC has a ton of negotiating power,
and the fighters have none.
And the fighters have none. So I'm always in favor. I'm always in favor of the fighters pushing for it. And it's hard because I feel like often they get backed in a corner to where they don't look good when they're pushing for it. But at the same time, some of the fighters, like, it's easy to see how flawed the fighters are when they are pushing for it. Like, John Jones is a flawed human being pushing for something good that he probably deserves, but he's also a flawed human being, so it's hard for him to have that leg to stand on because of it. Like, it sucks that you can't divorce his past mistakes from the fact that he wants money that he feels like if he's gonna be the greatest of all time, like, he should probably be getting GOAT money. And I know
he also said that he should be. Well, no, he also said that he should. John Jones said, I need to be the voice of reason here.
John Jones has said a lot of things that are crazy. I don't think he has a good team around him. I don't think he has good friends. I don't think he like. I
No.
think there's a lot flawed with.
Yes, men. We've
There's
been over
probably a
this.
lot. Yeah,
All yes, men.
a lot flawed with his camp. Probably like I don't know what his whole deal is in his life. Like he's going through hard stuff, and I feel bad for him and whatever struggles he has. But I think they should both be getting more money.
Yeah,
I've got no problem with that. Like
we
he
both
just seems like he's being
feel that
erratic.
way. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it sucks because I feel like he's also being erratic and weird about it too.
let me add this in, and I'll let you go off on this one. Dana White said one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense is because there's no live gate. So the UFC is not going to make as much money. So why should we pay you more? What do you think about that?
Then structure yourself better. And yeah, like that. It is on the UFC to figure out how they're making money. It's not on the fighters to figure out how the UFC is going to make money. Like fighters can do stuff on their own that the UFC doesn't really care about to market themselves better, but ultimately the UFC decides for the most part how marketed a fighter is and how much promotion a fight gets. Like if the UFC wants to put weight behind you, like how much weight the UFC put behind Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Nunes is a very clear example of how much the UFC can have an influence on how essentially out there you are. Because I think the UFC invested way more heavily in Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Nunes as a champion. And I think that has had an effect on pay-per-view buys for both of them, as well as how culturally relevant they both are.
All right. So going back to the beginning here, do I think that these fighters deserve more money? That's a given, always. In every future conversation that we ever have, that's a given. So I'm never advocating for fighters getting less of a percentage than they're already getting. They're getting what I consider the bare minimum for fighting. Okay. Let's put that. So hearing both sides of this argument, right? Where John Jones is like, well, I'm taking the risk here. You know, I'm going up to heavyweight, this and that. Francis Ngannou saying, you know, I'm fighting the champion. I deserve more money. This should be for a title. All those things. This one, to me, this is going to be one of the few times where it's not that I'm not on the fighter's side. That's a bad way to put it. I'm not for them advocating for more money because this fight doesn't feel like a super fight. As much as everybody wants to talk about it being a super fight, it's not two champions. It's Anderson Silva. This is Anderson Silva going up to fight Stephan Bonner. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Francis Ngannou is not Stephan freaking Bonner. I know that shit.
Maybe Anderson Silva versus Daniel Cormier.
Fine.
Ish. Yeah.
But that was the guy stepping up on short notice to fight a guy because again, John Jones failed a test. Ugh. No, that wasn't DQ'd. He failed a drug test right before that one. Remember? It was UFC 200. They almost.
That was the one.
So it's a little bit personal because this doesn't feel like a super fight to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not begrudging these fighters asking for more money. I'm okay with it because here's the thing. Does this fight have to happen for the UFC to move forward in the heavyweight division and the light heavyweight division? No, it does not. Okay. So that being said, this fight is not necessary for the future of those divisions or the future of the UFC. With that in mind, this fight is not it's not necessary. So if they don't have to do it, why not ask for more money? And if we don't get it, we don't do it. Who cares?
Yeah. But making it the hill you die on for John Jones, that's where it feels weird to me.
So that gets us to the second part here. So I don't know.
There's got to be more to this issue. Like this can't be the first time this has been an issue between him and Dana. And I imagine there's got to be more background to this than just he wants more money now.
So, okay, for context for everybody who doesn't know who's still listening right now, John Jones is one of the few people in UFC history who has single-handedly canceled a card. You can have your feelings about it however you'd like. He refused to fight. He was supposed to fight Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson had to pull out. And they offered people Chael Sonnen on short notice or whatever. They offered other fighters, and he just refused to fight. And they actually canceled the entire card because of that. You and I and the rest of the MMA community can feel about it however we'd like, whoever side we're on. But I can tell you from Dana's perspective, his words exactly, he's like, he's never going to headline a card. I hate, like, this guy can't, like, this guy's, him and Greg Jackson they're like fight ruiners, they're sport ruiners, this and that. So that didn't set a good precedent for Dana White and John Jones. Then go forward a couple more years. You have John Jones. Well, what was the first altercation that happened? Was it the first? Okay, so he beats DC in the 5-round decision. Yeah. And then in the second time they fight, he knocks him out, but then
3rd round with the head kick.
Yeah, and then he tests positive for I believe, I don't think he tested positive for testosterone. I think he tested positive for estrogen blockers.
Was that the Turinabol? That was
no.
Was that?
Oh, okay. Maybe that one was Turinabol, and then the Turinabol one was later.
Was that Oven St. Preux was Turinabol?
No, remember that was the clean fight. So what happened?
Clean fight?
Yes. So remember, DC. Oh, hold on. No. This is what happened. Okay, now I remember it in my head. John Jones beats DC convincingly, 5 rounds, beats him, no controversy. Hits a pregnant woman with his car. He hits another car, right? Leaves the scene of the accident. There's drugs in the car, whatever. The UFC strips him. Okay? Then DC goes on to defend, because remember, he was supposed to fight Anthony Rumble Johnson, but then
that's when DC fights Rumble Johnson.
Wins. Gets the
amazingly.
Gets the title. Fights John Jones for officially to put that rivalry to rest. Loses to John Jones. John Jones fails his post-fight drug test, so he gets stripped again. It's DQ'd. Essentially, so that's technically counts as it's a no contest, but that's effectively a win, or let's say a draw. So DC's still the champ. DC fights a couple other people. Because John Jones came back and fought. Then, oh God, what happened after that one? Then he came back. He came back. DC moved up to heavyweight. He comes back. Then he had the whole issue with the pulsing bullshit.
Yeah.
The UFC. Oh, you remember he was supposed to fight at UFC 200? We talked about that already. He failed the drug test and couldn't fight there. It probably ruined the pay-per-views on that.
Yep.
There's more stuff that has happened, and then all the stuff, the stuff with the getting pulled over and all this other shit. And before that, he had got a drunk driving arrest. He wrapped a car around a pole with hookers in the car. There's been so many things. We probably didn't name all of them. Guess what? If I'm the owner of a company and my best fighter, the greatest of all time, keeps fucking up so much that he can't fight for me and make me money, I'm not going to be happy with you regardless. Like, even if you give me a decent pay-per-view, like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I'm sick of your shit, and now you're going to ask me for more money? Fuck you, dude. Like, okay, that sets it in my mind. Like, from Dana's perspective, this is not my perspective. I'm thinking, if I was Dana, right? Fuck you. No. Like, show me that you can make it to more than 3 fights in a row without screwing your life up, and maybe we'll talk.
Which is fair. Although, he's gotten 4. He's gotten 4 in a row.
Who? Oh, yeah, okay. Alex. No, Gustafsson, he didn't. That doesn't count. They had to move fucking venues because of that shit.
I know.
That doesn't
3
count.
Fights. He has 3 fights then.
Smith, I said Thiago, more than 3. Yeah, split decision against Thiago.
Which I still to this day argue if Thiago hadn't blown out his knee, he would have beat John Jones in that fight.
Well, people think he won that fight. Then he fights Dominic Reyes. No, he fought Alex Smith? Anthony Smith, right? Beats him. He could have got DQ'd in that, but Anthony didn't take the DQ. Fine. Then he fights Dominic Reyes, and a lot of people think he lost that fight. Given his history with all the infractions inside and outside the octagon, plus the fact that you have not been convincing in your wins, you're not bringing in pay-per-view numbers, and now during the pandemic time, which whatever, I believe he deserves more money, blah 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 blah, and you're gonna within all that context, now you're going to be like, I'm going to go fight a fight that doesn't need to happen, that maybe a lot of people probably aren't going to be interested in outside of MMA anyway, isn't going to do big pay-per-view numbers, but pay me more fucking money. Screw you.
That fight
I'm not going to pay you.
That fight is only interesting if you do an interim heavyweight belt for it. That's the only way it's interesting.
Even if they did that, it's not, it only sets, what it does is it sets up a more interesting fight after. It's not a,
I know. And that's why it sucks. Cause nothing against, Francis Ngannou. Like he has done nothing guy.
Wrong. Yeah. Nothing wrong. Zero.
And John Jones is just coming from a place where if he had not fucked up, he absolutely has every leg to stand on to be asking for millions. But after three suspensions and then multiple infractions beyond he just has, it's a hard place for him to come from. And that's where we both agree on fighters should be paid more. And someone with John Jones' record and someone with John Jones' essentially legend behind him, he probably should be getting paid a lot more than he is. But he is his own worst enemy. Dana White is not his enemy. I mean, granted, Dana White might be his enemy too, because, Dana White is a hard person to deal with when it comes to negotiating pay or negotiating anything. But John Jones isn't putting himself in a good negotiation.
No,
John Jones has control over the negotiating position that he's in, and he has not helped himself throughout his career. Which sucks.
He is not a company man. Never has been.
You don't need to be a company man. But
I'm not saying you do. I'm saying that he's not a company man, so it already puts you at odds. Not necessarily at odds, but you're not the boss's favorite. Okay. Yep. You're not Donald Cerrone. Okay. You're not willing to fight every weekend. You're not willing to fight whoever they put in front of you. They're like, hey, we got this horse and it knows MMA. Are you going to fight it? Cerrone's like, fuck yeah, bro. Let's do it. John Jones is not that guy. So you're already a tier below those kind of fighters, right? You're a tier below them. Not that you can't be successful, not that you can't make money, and not that you can't demand more money. That's fine. But he's a tier below them. And then on top of that, he has multiple infractions. The only fucking reason he's still in the UFC is because of his skill set. If he lost two fights, if he lost 2 fights in a row and he has all these problems, he's not drawing pay-per-view, he's fucking cut 6 years ago, dude.
Yeah. And there's probably a situation where if he lost one fight, he was going to be blackballed. Or at least under the table suspended.
The reason why he's been kept around is because he's a mediocre, above average pay-per-view draw. Let's call it that. Because within the MMA community, he is a pay-per-view draw. Outside, no. So he's mid-tier pay-per-view draw. So
there's the fear of, do you have the best fighter in the world in another organization? And I think that's what the UFC has paid him to not be. Regardless of if he's a pay-per-view draw, if Bellator has what the entire MMA community considers the greatest fighter in the world, that's a big knock against the UFC.
And we've talked about this already. If you can't make it to fights, how can the UFC fucking count on you? If you can't make weight for your fight, that's a problem, and they're not going to put you in a title fight. Yeah. It's even fucking worse. Being injured, Dominic Cruz, right?
Yeah.
So Dominic Cruz, through fault of his own, or Cain Velasquez, the similar, the injuries during training, through fault of their own and their body and all those other things, it's not that those are factors outside of their control, but they're not doing things blatantly against the law or blatantly to, make horrible mistakes that is going to paint the UFC in a bad light. They're not making it to fights though. Okay. So you give them a little leeway because of their skill sets. They're the best. Yeah. Some of them are the best of all time, at their peak. So they get leeway and they've given them chances. And I'm on board with that. Now add in the fact that the reason you're not making the fights is due to personal decisions that have nothing to do with MMA, right? They don't. Yeah. And then on top of that,
that's where it's almost more fucked up.
And then I know we talked about this already too. He is the trifecta or the perfect storm, whatever you want to call it, of the UFC's worst fucking nightmare because they can't cut him because he's a pay-per-view draw and he's the best.
Yep.
Okay, they can't cut him, but he does all the things that we already talked about. Fouls, fucking constantly, poking people in the eyes, like doesn't have control over his tools, does shit to people. Like he got a DQ. He had a DQ loss when he did the downward elbow. I know people don't like that. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But
he still knew the rule and still did it.
He's still doing stupid shit. He's doing dumb stuff inside and outside the octagon. Okay. So we already covered the outside stuff. Now the inside stuff, he also screws up. He could have had a DQ loss against Anthony Smith. He could have had multiple losses, like due to eye pokes. If they would have started taking
Dana White
points from
gave
him.
Anthony Smith the biggest backroom bonus in his entire life.
Me too.
For not taking that DQ. Like I hope Anthony Smith just got set up because
he's got a job with them.
Yeah,
as an announcer. Huge. I like him.
Good.
So like I said, he's the perfect storm. He's not a company man. He cancels on, like, if he doesn't want to fight, he's not going to fight. He's a nightmare, a publicity fucking nightmare. He's not, and he doesn't. And here's another thing. If he played the fucking heel, if he would just embrace the heel that he is, again, I'm going hard on him right now, but I still feel for him. Like I want him to get help and I want him to be a better person and I want him to find happiness. But what I'm saying is, like, if he just embraced being the heel, he would be such a bigger draw. But every time it's the woe is me. God put me in this position. I can't believe God's given me all these struggles. No, he's not.
I don't understand how fighters don't learn more from Mayweather. Like if you're in
McGregor
combat,
did.
I know, but if you're in combat sports and you look at who is the most successful of all time in it, I would say, yeah, Mayweather. Arguably the most successful combat sport athlete of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
he made the most money and he took the least damage and had, arguably a perfect record. Like he went 15-0, took as little damage as you humanly could in boxing and made the most money ever made. Like,
I mean, that's
cool.
hard
He checked all the
to
boxes. So how do you not just look at it like, oh, you can do that playing the heel? Yes. You don't have to, like, people don't have to love you to do that. In fact, it might be easier for you to be the heel in some way. Like, maybe not, it might weigh on you, but like, if you can do it, do it.
It doesn't even have to weigh on him because we saw his interaction with DC when it was candid. Like when they thought the cameras weren't rolling and he goes like, "You still there, pussy?" And he's like saying shit to him, and the stuff he puts out on Twitter, it's like, just do that.
Just be that. Yeah.
Do that. That's fine. But then after the fight, or after you hit someone with your car, or after you do drugs, or after you fire guns out from your car and get arrested, or after you drink and drive, or after you do drugs and get caught again, or after you do drugs and get caught again, after all those things, don't immediately after that be like, well, God's clearly put me in a position now. He's always testing me. No, he's fucking not.
You are literally testing yourself, and it's not really a test. You're just...
No, like... Even if by some fucked up logic he thinks that like, oh, God has put him in this position and he has to make hard decisions all the time, like God's constantly putting forks in the road and he's always going down the wrong one. Even if that fucked up logic in his brain is how he's actually thinking, it's not working. It doesn't work. Just be the asshole. And people will want to watch you lose. And then when you win, be an asshole more. Be like,
and people will pay more money to watch you lose.
Yes. After you beat DC, don't be like, oh, congratulations. And like, oh, I feel bad for beating. No, fuck that. Be like, that guy fucking beat his ass. Be how you are on Twitter.
Again. Fuck him.
Yeah. Be like, I beat his ass and this time I knocked him out. If I wanted to fuck his wife, I couldn't. I could spank her on the ass and you can't do shit about it. Like, dude, he could just do that. He does it all the time on Twitter. Just do that in the octagon anyway. Just keep it up. Just stop it. Stop trying to filter yourself to please the fans because you don't and you're not. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop it. You just be you. Have people
and he would probably have more fans, honestly.
He'd have more fans,
as many people,
more money.
For as many people I would hate him, he would have more legitimate fans because people would at least respect what he's doing.
Yeah, people like, a lot of people didn't like Conor McGregor. And I specifically remember John Jones mentioning it, like, oh man, if Conor McGregor was black and doing this, no one would like him. Hold on.
Newsflash, a lot of people still don't like Conor McGregor.
Here's the thing. Maybe that's true. Maybe. I'm going to give him that. Maybe. But here's the other thing. If you're referring to you in reference to that, fuck you. You are not that. You are not that. He has made it to every single fight. Has he had outside the octagon transgressions? Yes, he has. Have they been related to the UFC? Almost, mostly. Like he he punched that old guy. Not a good look. And
the bus trolley one. Like
that was the UFC though. That was within UFC. That was within the context of trying to fight someone in the UFC. Was it right? No. Did he damage people? Did he possibly alter careers? Yes. Should he be fined and possibly arrested? Yes, of course. He broke the fucking law. I'm not giving him a pass for being a dick. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not giving him a pass for being an asshole. But he embraces that shit.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing. As you age and become more mature and start to develop and have a family and realize like how the business works and all this other stuff, you can turn a leaf. And guess what? People are going to love you even more because it's a redemption story. But guess what? You can't have a fucking redemption if the whole time all you're doing is bitching about how everybody's treating you poorly. It doesn't work like that. Play the heel. Look at Chael Sonnen. The biggest heel in UFC history, as far as I'm concerned. Always an asshole. He's called the bad guy for a reason. Always talking shit. But after every single fight, he'd be like, you know what? I got beat by the better man. This and that. Next fight, boom, right back on. Fuck this guy. I hate Brazil. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to tie you in a knot. Blah, 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 blah. All that stuff. And look how people treat him now. They love him. They love him.
He never would have been close to making the money he made and getting the fights he got if he didn't play the heel.
Nope.
Like his personality drove him probably more than his actual skill set.
And
the success he had. Yeah.
Yes, his skill set was phenomenal. What he did to Anderson Silva for 5 rounds, you can say whatever you want.
But he never would have gotten into that position if he wasn't himself. Yeah.
Yes, that's the point. And if John Jones, like, he's obviously intelligent enough to see what works, because he references it when he tweets, and he says things when he tweets, and he knows what he's actually worth. The problem is he's not representing that worth to other people. You're not giving someone the confidence to give you that kind of money, because they can't count on you. They can't count on you to be the heel. They can't count on you to be the good guy. They can't count on you not breaking the law. They can't count on you to make the fucking fights. They can't count on you. You are not trustworthy, dude. And they're not going to take a chance on you if they've given you fucking 50,000 chances. They've given you so many chances to figure out who you are, to figure your shit out, to become the champion that you need to be. Bad guy, good guy. I don't care. Destroyer, marauder, playing the odds. Like, I don't fucking care. They've given you all the leeway in the world, and you've done nothing but spit in their face the entire time. You've just taken all of their, I wouldn't say kindness. You've taken all of their rope, and you haven't even hung yourself with it. You've been swinging that rope around trying to hit everybody in the UFC with it. Like, everybody who's your like in the UFC, you're like, hey, Dana White, here's that rope. Wham! It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, I gave you that rope. Like, damn it.
Well, in terms of the position he just put himself in for kind of no reason, I'd argue. And then the fact that he is turning it into the hill that he's going to kill his career on. Like, I just feel bad for the guy. Like, I think he's making a horrible decision. He's relinquishing his title, which he's decided he's just going to vacate. All right. Interesting. Sure. I do want to see Thiago Santos versus Dominic Reyes. So
yes, let's go. Let's go.
That's going to be an awesome fight.
Or Jan Blachowicz. Let's go.
Good.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Good luck getting it back. And honestly, like, what's your plan? No one's releasing John Jones. Dana White is not releasing you from your contract. I don't know what your plan was, or who told you this was a good idea, or didn't tell you this was a bad idea, but you just dug yourself into a hole you didn't need to be in, which is unfortunately kind of classic John Jones at this point. So if anything, this is just another call for help.
So yeah,
that's how I'm reading this. Like, it's crazy to the point where I'm like, this is a cry for help. It has to be, because it makes no sense.
Okay, so let's not reiterate everything. I'm saying like I'm not going to reiterate everything that we talked about before with John Jones and all of his past transgressions and how he needs help. But let's talk about some of the positives that have come from that, because all of those things I just said are absolutely true, and I'm not going to go back on anything I just said because they are factors that are absolutely in play at all times. But let's look at the facts at hand. He didn't fight for a long period of time in between, like the prime, what we consider the prime of his career, right?
Oh yeah, he lost out.
But that also allowed him to not take damage. That allowed him to work on his game more. Well, he made decent paychecks and he was able to pay for the training still, and he has a good camp.
Yeah, so got him putting on muscle.
So he has, in a way, through his just lack of control, extended his career. And with that, he has also put himself in a position where if he were somehow able to leave the UFC, everybody would still want him because he had, like, whatever decline he's shown in his offense, he clearly has shown that he's, if not the best in the world, he's on any given day, he could be the best in the world. Let's put it that way, right? Like, he's not the absolute, like, who's undeniable the best right now? George St. Pierre at his peak, right? On any given, like, we all knew he was the best in the world, right? Yeah. And you wouldn't have to put any qualifiers on it. Anderson Silva in his prime, you're not going to say he's just the best in the world. No one's touching that guy. Well, John Jones, we've seen, similar to those guys later in their career, on any given day, someone could beat him. So given that, on any given day, he might be the best fighter in the world. So anybody could sign him. How could the UFC release him? How is that possible? Like, what you said, like, you don't know what his plan is. Like, let's try to think. What could he possibly be trying to do? Is he trying to get more money this way? Because I don't know if that's going to work.
The only thing I can think of is that he might be in a position to where he wants the UFC to say they won't release him so that he can bring a lawsuit against the UFC. Because I think the UFC's contract structure for its fighters, there's some things the UFC does to this day that probably still dive into labor violation. And but the UFC's got some of the best lawyers in the world.
But it doesn't. They've gone to court for it, and they won. They won.
And that's where I mean, like, that's where I'm trying to think, like, unless John Jones feel like he has a group of lawyers together that say, like, yeah, we have a solid legal argument for how we're going to get you out of this. We just have to take this to court. Like, that is literally the only, like, thinking as a rational human being, that's the only way I could think that he is thinking this is the right thing to do. If he's approaching it from a rational point of view, is that he already has a plan and there's something legally he thinks he can do to get out of his contract.
So honestly, what I think he actually is doing is he's putting a big bluff out there. He's really doing it, and he's hoping that the UFC won't call him on it, and they'll give him. Because here's the thing, though, John Jones has one option. Technically, okay, he has two options, two definite options. He has take the fight the UFC gives, or never fight again.
Retire.
Yeah, those are
be forced into retirement. And I'll be honest,
two options.
I think the UFC just forces him into retirement. I don't think the UFC is in a position where they need John Jones if he's not fighting in another organization.
That's what I'm saying. The UFC has all the cards here. They can say they can say, we want you to fight this guy. You don't want to fight him? Okay. We're going to pay you this amount of money. You don't want to take the money? Don't fight. You want to be released? Bye. They have all the cards. Yeah. He did not. I don't think he's put himself in a good enough position. If this is Conor McGregor playing this, we saw what happened. Conor McGregor got a cut. Like, he got his stuff sponsored. Like, his stuff was on the Octagon. Yeah. Like, he
won. Conor McGregor won the UFC. Like, Conor McGregor has been more successful at negotiating with the UFC than Conor McGregor.
The two fighters in the past 10 years, I would say, that have had enough pull to pretty much say and do whatever they wanted are Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey. They transcended the sport in popularity. Everybody, let's just be honest,
I'd say a little bit with George St. Pierre on his comeback.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you because he was such a pay-per-view draw. Yeah. But I still think that was within the confines of what the UFC was going to allow. I don't think he could say like, "Hey UFC, I'm going to do this, and you're going to help me do it." Whereas if Ronda said, "I'm going to go wrestle for a couple years," and wanted like the UFC to like do something with her, they'd be like, "Okay, go for it."
Yeah.
So I think GSP. You're right. Yes, GSP definitely had a lot of pull. But there's something about transcending the sport, and GSP did that. You're right. So GSP did that in Canada. Ronda, if as MMA fans and as more hardcore fans, we kind of know that Ronda was not the end all be all. Like the whole talks of her fighting a dude, like okay, like come on now. But that
she did transcend the sport. Like
that's what I'm saying is you and I, we both know that she was beatable. Right? Like there were people who could beat her and we saw it happen, but we knew that. And we also knew that a lot of the hype behind her wasn't fake. It was a lot of marketing and it
That's why I argue that UFC has a lot of power when it comes to marketing.
Yes. But the fighter has to be a part of that. And Conor McGregor, he was in his time, in his prime, given his contemporaries in his divisions, he was a better fighter than Ronda Rousey ever was.
Yes.
So Ronda Rousey had holes in her game that nobody exploited. I'll take that back. Ronda Rousey was the best in her division because the female that division was so far behind, and I think Nunes could have beaten her a long time ago.
I think Conor McGregor just faced people at he faced more people at a higher skill set in comparison to himself than Ronda Rousey faced in comparison to herself.
Yes. And on top of that, dude, he's done. I still to this day think he's done something that no one else has done. And it's just like what Cowboy does, where it's like, I'll fight anybody, anywhere, any weight, anytime. Conor did that. Like people talk shit all the time about him, but he paid his dues. He said, I'll fight this guy. They changed to Chad Mendes. I'll fight him too. I don't care if it's a wrestler on a week's notice. I'll fight him. I'll fight this guy at 170 pounds. I'll fight him again at 170 pounds and beat him. I'll go for the 155 belt. I'm going to go fight a guy. I'm going to go box a dude. I've never boxed a day in my life. I'm going to go box
the greatest of all time.
Dude, and
and hang.
That guy has taken more swings at more pitches than anybody who's had that kind of success in the UFC. He has done. Anderson Silva did a little bit of that. I would argue it wasn't as impressive when he was going up against people. It was he was
quiet
doing.
About it though.
Yeah, but what you remember what he did to Stephen Bonner or not Rich Franklin? Obviously Rich Franklin twice, but what he did to Forrest Griffin,
Chris Lieben. I mean, yeah.
Oh, dude, but Forrest Griffin is gigantic.
Yeah.
And he just dismantled him. And Stephen Bonner, when he put himself against the cage, and he's just like, come on, let's go. You don't get any better than that, man. So there's certain fighters who have put themselves in this position, like outside the octagon and inside the octagon. They put themselves in a position of power with the UFC, giving them pull, and they can do things and say things within that position that can help them make more money, help them get more publicity, help them get more endorsements, and all those things. And the thing is, John Jones hasn't done any of that.
I hope Justin is on his way there. Like, as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about Justin Gaethje right now, and I'm like, I hope that's his trajectory. Like, I feel like
my boy.
I'm like that's where I hope his career is heading, especially given the statement he just made.
That interview with him. Yeah, let's talk about positive shit. That interview with him.
I think we've said all we can say about John Jones at this point.
Listen, John Jones, if you're listening to this, how'd you find it? But also, dude, like I really hope he finds happiness. I do. Yeah. I really do. I want him to be fulfilled in his life. I want him to be happy with what he has, and I want him to really find like peace.
Yeah. Find good people.
Yes. But I saw this with Megan O'Leary, who was asking Justin. There was a clip. It was like, how did you feel out there? Like, were you feeling unbeatable? And like, did you feel like you couldn't be touched? And he's like, no. I was just ready to die. I was like, holy shit, dude. That guy is so unreal.
Did you watch the Rogan episode?
I'm almost all the way through it. I'm at the part where
That
they were
turned,
going over the gloves and stuff.
oh, when it turned into a giant sales pitch for the last half.
I'm okay with that. Those things are fantastic.
I know. I'm not mad at it because, like,
I want to buy
cool.
them.
If you're gonna do a sales pitch at Rogan, which some people have done, like I don't know if you remember the Jamie Foxx one when he just turned into a sunglass sales pitch. That was weird. But yeah, like the second half definitely turned into a hardcore sales pitch, but also like kind of just wanting to change the way the UFC are doing. Like, it's a very valid sales pitch.
Well, it's a concern that it's a concern that has been it's talked about almost every time there's an eye poke. We all know it. We all know it. And that's not even to do with the injuries and all the other stuff that he's obviously pointing out. Like, those are things that nobody talks about that he brought up, but this is something that, like, the eye poke thing, that's talked about every time. It's like, oh, with these MMA gloves, and oh, with these UFC gloves, and oh, because we have open fingers.
Essentially common training injuries, which end up being one of the biggest impacts of whether or not fights happen in the UFC are training injuries. So him coming at it from that perspective, I was like, why are people putting the pressure on, like, you've got one of the best coaches in the UFC, and now you have the UFC Performance Institute. It should be a situation where when someone in the UFC realm comes up with an idea,
he works for him.
The Performance Institute should be testing it. Like, that should be part. If the Performance Institute is there to improve training for fighters, it should also be exploring things that are going to prevent injuries in training. Dude, and that should also include like the NFL constantly updates their helmets.
Yeah.
Constantly updates their equipment because they're trying to find things that reduce injuries. They're trying to find things to keep the player safe. And when's the last time UFC gloves got updated or anything?
5 years ago, they changed them, but they didn't really do much.
Yeah, then that's what I mean. Like, the Performance Institute should be on board with looking into these types of things.
Yeah, like when he was talking, it made me want to go weigh my gloves that I have. I have a pair of. I don't think that they're that far off. I have a pair of Hayabusa gloves. They're not cheap. They have so a lot of the things he was talking about, like a wrist support and stuff. I don't wear wraps. I know I don't punch as hard as Justin Gaethje, whatever. But I don't wear wraps because I have, like, it has this double wrist strap that locks in your wrist, so I don't have to wear wraps when I'm hitting the bag. I've never had wrist problems with those gloves because your wrist doesn't flex.
Yeah.
So I know what he's talking about because I've used other gloves where, like, if you punch wrong and it opens up your wrist, or if you catch it this way and it closes it, like, you can really damage stuff. So I totally get what he's talking about. And I think he made a lot of valid points where he was saying, like, they want control of it, and the owners of the UFC and the people in charge of, like, promotion and all that stuff, like, they want control and they want these gloves only to be in the UFC. And he's kind of steadfast about it. He's like, I want my gloves everywhere. Like, I'd love everybody to be able to use this technology. Like, why does it have to just be the UFC? It's like, I'm trying to help fighters here. Like, there's fighters everywhere. Let's help everyone.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure the XFL can purchase the same helmets as the NFL. It just can't say NFL on it.
Yeah, like, they can. It's shunt, or is it shunt or shoot?
Yeah.
Damn it! Now I forgot. I haven't played football in so long. Rydell. I know Rydell makes helmets. Shut. It's SCHUTE or something like that. Shut helmets. Those were the good ones. I remember in high school, they gave all the good players, like, the Shut helmet with, like, the concussion protection, and then, like, all of us, like the freshmen and the sophomores, we got, like, the old Rydell helmets with, like, barely any padding, and like we're all just, like, we're little and stuff, so it's not a big deal. But I thought it was funny because I remember I got that helmet as a junior. Because it was the only one that fit me, and it was and like, we got a bunch of new helmets, and a lot of the other players were pissed off because I have I think I have, like, a big head for, like, my size. Anyway, like, some of the other players were pissed off at me, and I had a pair of pads. I remember too. Everybody wanted these light pads, and I got a set of them because I was so small. And they didn't want to give me. Yeah, well, yeah, it's good to be 120 pounds. Nothing fits you.
Nah.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to see him versus Khabib. I didn't get to the part where they talked about Khabib yet, so no spoilers. Let's see. Do we have another fight coming up next weekend?
The 6th, we have a fight coming up.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah. They just dropped it. It's actually a pretty legit card.
Holy shit.
Yup. They like just dropped it, I think. Nunes.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Cody Stamann is fighting Brian Kelleher on the prelims. Jussier Formiga is fighting on the early prelim. Holy moly.
Mm-hmm. Then you got Sean O'Malley, Neil Magny, Cody Garbrandt's back. Yeah.
All right. So
Aljamain Sterling. Like it's
all right, let's break down some of these and we'll call it on this one. Let's go over let's look at the main event first, because that seems like, I would say it's cut and dry, but maybe you can make an argument against it. What do you think? Nunes versus Spencer.
I mean, I'm not going against Nunes.
So the one thing I will say is Felicia Spencer went 5 rounds with Cyborg.
Yeah.
I think she went the distance. Regardless, she can hang. She took a lot of punishment from Cyborg, who hits as hard as Amanda Nunes for sure. So there's that. She's a wrestler.
Amanda Nunes can also head kick you. She can choke you at like.
Yeah, but Felicia Spencer's a wrestler, dude.
Yeah, it'll be a good fight.
She's big.
I'm interested.
And she's a real featherweight.
Yeah, I am interested in this fight. I think it'll be good. I'm not picking against Amanda Nunes, but I do. I mean, I don't think I picked against Ronda Rousey when she fought Holly Holm, but like that can happen on any given night in the UFC. So like, yeah, it's not the craziest thing in the world if Amanda Nunes loses.
I think we saw Nunes still has some very big holes in her game that were exploited by Jermaine Durandamy.
Mm-hmm.
We saw, her striking, while powerful and pretty like it's cleaned up quite a bit. It's not on the level of an elite striker, so she still has a hole there. But her wrestling was better, so she was able to do that. I believe that if someone can keep up with her strength wise and can wrestle her and really make her work, I still don't believe in Nunes's cardio. I think she's to me, she's that first round is hell. And if you can get through that and stand,
there's a chance.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So Durandamy, she hung in there, and we saw what Nunes had to do. Nunes had to take her down, because if she kept striking, she was probably going to gas out. With Shevchenko, Shevchenko just didn't have the size. I still think she won that second fight.
That's kind of where my mind was at, is if you can, but I don't know if Felicia Spencer's on the skill level to do to her what Shevchenko did.
It would be different if she was her striking is rudimentary at best. Felicia Spencer is a good female fighter, but clearly behind as far as technique. But if she can out wrestle Nunes and make her work and tire her out, we could see a win here. I give her. I'm 80-20 on this one. I'm not all in on Nunes winning this fight, because I think Felicia can hang, and if she can, the real thing is if she can make it past that first round.
All right, out of 10 fights, I think Amanda wins 7.
I think she wins more than that, but yeah.
Okay, that's where I'm putting it. 7.
I put her at 80%. Okay. Yeah, the way she loses is by gassing out and Felicia being able to impose her will. Now, that being said, if Amanda Nunes can keep it on the feet and doesn't gas out and is able to just pick Felicia apart, we could see a long night for Felicia, and she could take a lot of damage.
Or it could be a short night. She could just clip her.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we got
Cody.
A firefight, a freaking bantamweight here. So Rafael Assunção, who is, I'll take the first one on this one. So Rafael Assunção is the dark horse in that division and has been ever since TJ Dillashaw went and fought for the title. So the reason why he got that title shot to begin with was because Assunção got injured. And that's why TJ went and fought Renan Barão. And ever since then, Rafael Assunção has had incredible victories. He's had some decent split decision wins, and he's had a couple losses. But really,
lost to Marlon Moraes.
Yeah, the second time. He beat him. Marlon Moraes' first fight in the UFC was against a Sun Sao, and a Sun Sao got a kind of questionable win there.
Yeah.
A Sun Sao is very difficult to fight. He shuts down so much offense, and based off of the last two performances from Cody Garbrandt, maybe even the last three, if you want to be honest, I know he changed camps and he's not changed camps, but he's working with Mark Henry.
Mm-hmm.
So with all those call outs and stuff, and Mark Henry's had a lot of really good fights the last couple of days with Caitlin Chukagian winning, and also darn it, she just fought Claudia Gadelha was also with me. Yeah, so she had a win, so they could be riding a high at the gym, and that could give him a little bit more confidence, which for him, is big at this point in his career.
Yeah.
This one's hard for me because I haven't seen Cody fight since he got knocked out by Pedro Munoz, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because his last 3 fights were all lost knockouts, but it was TJ, DJ, and then Pedro Munoz.
Yeah. So
yeah.
This one's hard for me. A Sun Sao is really hard to put away, man. And I'm actually leaning to a Sun Sao. I think he's got more tools. And unless Garbrandt has really turned a new leaf and really turned a corner in his career, I think Sun Sao can get this one done. I'm not confident in that one. It's like 60-40. I'm going to say,
yeah, just for fun, I'm going to pick Cody on that one. I love a good move to a new camp. I'm curious to see where his head's at. I mean, he still was a beast on a tear before he fought TJ, and TJ just kind of had his number. And he lost to Pedro. So, I don't think there's anything that says Cody couldn't be better than what he was before he fought TJ, before this kind of string of losses. So
I still think Cody
he's got holes. He's got
his best performance was against Dominic Cruz, and I think his wins are deceptively impressive. Not that he didn't defeat good opponents. It's just I don't know if that was their best night. I feel like when someone has their best night against him, he just can't hang, man. Like his chin is not there. If he gets cracked, he just wants to get in a brawl, and then his chin goes first.
His emotional investment is where he struggled. Like when he's emotionally been drawn into a fight and kind of drawn out of his game, that's where gets into a brawl.
I'm picking a Sun Sao. I got him 60-40.
I'm 60-40. Yeah. I'm still picking Cody just for fun.
So Aljamain Sterling, I think that one looks like it could go to a decision, and a Sun Sao can just shut him down. Bantamweight, we got Aljo. Aljamain Sterling, who is deserving.
Fights.
He's deserving of a title shot. To be honest with you, this should be the co-main event, not the other one.
Yeah,
but whatever.
That's interesting.
And then Corey Sandhagen, who is just. He's got a rock chin, and he's incredibly diverse. So this one's going to be hard. This is a 50-50 fight for me. I have no idea. If I was leaning away, I might pick Sterling because he's a harder hitter.
I'm picking Sterling.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, he's coming on a 4-fight win streak.
His last loss was to Moraes.
Yeah.
That knockout. And even in that Moraes fight, I think if he doesn't get caught with that knee, he could have finished him. So Sterling's no joke, but Sandhagen has so many tools. So many tools. We'll see. Yeah. I think Sterling can get that one done. Welterweight, you got Neil Magny finally back again against Anthony Rocco Martin. Neil Magny struggles against ultra specialists. Rocco Martin, from what I remember, is not an ultra specialist. I think Neil Magny gets that one done. I have a lot of confidence in that one. Neil
I don't know a lot about Rocco's background.
Well, the thing is, I don't remember him being some crazy. I remember him as a brawler. I could be way off, but let's see.
He's from Illinois.
Yeah. Oh, then I'm rooting for him.
Heights. Yeah.
I mean, he's got good wins. Jake Matthews is good. Sergio Moraes. That's a decent win. He lost to Damian Maia. Everybody
no
does.
shame in that. Yeah.
And then Ramazan Aviv. Yeah, I'm going Neil Magny on this one. This is a tough fight. All right, and we got Eddie Wineland, Indiana boy.
Yep, versus Sugar Shane O'Malley.
Okay, so Sean has shown diversity in technique. He has shown resilience in that fight where he busted his ankle or busted his knee, and he if that other guy he fought stood up, Sean loses that fight. Mm-hmm. But Sean didn't quit. He kept fighting, so he won that fight. Great, good for him. That's nothing against him. Eddie Wineland is a hard hitting bantamweight. He doesn't wrap. He doesn't wrap his knuckles. He puts like one piece of tape. He puts one piece of tape over his knuckles as required, and he's obviously on the tail end of his career. Once he challenged for the title at bantamweight at one point, but was it bantamweight or featherweight? But I think
it was bantamweight.
He challenged for the title. Yeah. I think he got knocked out by Renan Barao.
Renan Barao, yeah. It was for an interim.
Yep. Yeah, I think he got the turning side kick to the face, and he got knocked out. So Eddie Wineland's no joke, and he hits hard. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. I'm always rooting for him. Sean's like a crazy prospect with so much upside, and this is a really big test for him. We're gonna. Yeah.
I think this is a good fight, just in terms of you've got a seasoned, skilled veteran on kind of the back part of his career, and young, skilled guy coming up.
This one is like really difficult for me to call because I haven't seen anything from Sean. Like I've seen that he has diverse techniques, but what happens when he goes 3 rounds with a guy who can hang with him and can catch him? Yeah. Does Eddie use wrestling? I don't know. I think he could, because I don't know what Sean's. Dude, I don't know why I'm leaning towards Sean, but I am. Like I think
he's got the juice coming off 248. He's just recently, so we kind of got a fresh.
So much momentum and so much weed, so yeah. So I think he can. I can
see it going either way. I mean, yeah, we've seen UFC veterans take down young guys plenty of times when they weren't supposed to.
Yes. All right. The prelims, we've got Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy, fighting Chase Hooper, who looks like he could be my younger cousin. Like, dude, he's so young. He's not even, I don't know if he's 21 yet. He couldn't drink last time, and he's like, yeah, I just want some Skittles. He's that guy. So after he got his win, he got cracked hard, and he managed to get a submission in his first victory in the UFC. Alex Caceres is super crafty. He's got insane technique, and he likes to jump around. He's a fun fighter.
I love Alex Caceres.
Yeah, his record is the way it is because he has a lot of holes in his game, but he doesn't really have like one punch knockout power. It's really just like a creative thing that can catch you. So
yeah,
you know what? I think Chase Hooper can get this one done. I could be wrong on this. I could be overreading his first win, and then he's going to get pieced up. But yeah, if he can use a variety of techniques, he might be able to get Alex out.
Yeah, I can see that one going either way. I'm just gonna pick Alex Caceres just because I can.
Okay, we got 2 German guys. I know they're not, but whatever. So Ian Heinisch versus Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert's got a crazy heart, and Ian Heinisch hits pretty hard. Oh man, I have no idea. Someone's probably gonna go to sleep in that fight, though. Now that I said that, it's going to go to the ground and go to
every time we've said it, even with heavyweights, it's like, oh great, we got a decision out of that.
I hate when people say that. Like,
thanks, Greg Hardy.
This is not going to all 5 rounds. Like, oh god, here we go. Okay.
Nico Price is on the prelims.
I know. Wait, no, he's not.
Welter? Did that change? I got him on Vicente Nico Price.
That was 3 fights ago.
Did they? Oh, is this an old 250 card that I'm looking at?
It's got to be. So the next fight is
hold on. I got to look this up. Go ahead. Keep talking.
So the next fight is Cody Stamann versus Brian Kelleher. Brian Kelleher just fought and got an incredible knockout. I'm I think Kelleher gets another one, man. That guy hits so freaking hard. His nickname's Boom for a reason. And he might have the tie-dye shorts that he wanted. I'm so excited.
Nice.
Yeah. Mike.
All right, yeah, I was wrong. Nico Price isn't fighting again.
No, he just fought Luke. He busted. Remember they busted each other up.
That's right.
You got Alex Perez versus Jussier Formiga on the early prelims. Jussier Formiga is no joke. Alonzo Menafield, he's newer. Devin Clark, that's going to be a fun light heavyweight. There's not a lot of big guys.
Yeah.
That's the heaviest fight.
I think they kind of blew their load on the fight nights with
yeah. So that's the biggest fight of the card, and it's the first one. The heaviest guys. So which means it's probably going to be super boring and no one's getting knocked out.
You say that. I mean, this last fight night was pretty sweet in terms of results. Like, I wasn't expecting a lot from it, and it was a fun fight night.
So there's been a lot made about the smaller octagon, the 25 feet versus 30 feet. But Bloody Elbow did an article on it back in 2015, and I remembered it because I thought what everybody thought was the smaller one leads to more knockouts. But if you look at the data, data
analytics don't lie.
Well, here's the thing. It's from 2015, and I don't know if it's been updated. I haven't found it. I didn't find one that was updated. But based off their statistics, the heavyweights led to more knockouts. It was like 65% versus 63%. But there it is. Oh, no. There it is. So there's a great graph that shows how it works. Here, let me share my screen. All right, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
All right. So if you look at the knockouts, by weight class, they're almost identical. There's not a big significant statistical difference. Middleweight, there's a 11% jump, but everything else is almost the same. And at flyweights, there was no knockouts in the small. So yeah, that's a statistical anomaly. But that's what I'm saying. Like the small one at that point had not created a big difference in how people fought. The submissions were a little different. The flyweights got way more submissions, but there wasn't a lot to pull from. So here's the thing. What do people, why wouldn't the smaller cage affect finishing? And I kept racking my brain, and I read through the article back then, and really it comes down to, like, I think these guys train in a small cage anyway. How many of them have a 30-foot cage?
Yeah, it probably doesn't, like, the cage size probably isn't a huge impact, with the exception of a couple people's fighting style. Like, that's probably, like, the size of the cage probably has more to do with your fighting style, or whether it helps you or hurts you versus your weight class. Like, if you're Tyron Woodley, fighting in a smaller cage is probably worse for you than fighting in a bigger cage.
Yeah, because he fights on his back foot.
Yeah, like if you're a counter striker fighting on your back foot, trying to, like, if you have less room to back up, then you have less opportunities. Overeem probably struggles in a small cage versus a big cage.
Well, yeah, the bigger guys. Yeah. You would think
if you put a heavyweight Overeem in a small cage, it might be a harder night for him, or it might not. Who knows?
But the thing is, like, I wonder how many of these guys really have a 30-foot cage that they're practicing in.
But I also think those are outliers. Like, most people, it probably doesn't make a big difference.
But again, I'm going back to it. Like, I want to reiterate. I didn't even mention, they don't even practice in a cage 100% of the time. They're training in the open space. So the fact that there's a cage there, like, it can change things, but they practice. So they practice their skill sets: jiu-jitsu, striking, wrestling, all that stuff. They practice it on mats in an open gym with other people. Okay? So there's no cage there. They'll put themselves against the wall, and they'll do that. And they'll practice wall walking, and they'll do that. But they don't do that only in the cage. They practice those techniques independent of the size of the cage. And then, like, so there's a skill set that they're practicing already, independent of size of cage. And then, like I said, how many of these gyms have a true 30-foot cage? because I've been to like an MMA gym and I've seen the cage and I didn't measure it, but pretty damn small. Like some of these gyms just have a cage so you can practice in one.
So
So
it's not going to be a full size cage.
sometimes it might be if you're in a big gym, sometimes it might not be. But the point is, if you're practicing in a tiny cage anyway, like let's say it's a 15-foot cage, just so you can get the experience of fighting in a cage, a 25-foot cage isn't going to affect you that much. It's going to, unless your game strictly depends on you having a tiny cage. You know what I mean? So I think it comes down more to how they train and less about like where they're performing at.
Interesting.
Because all the comments for the first four fights that ended in finishes, they're like, lots of finishes due to this small cage. No, no.
Fuck that. Like all the armchair data analysts that.
It's anecdotal.
That's pure.
Look, we had decisions the rest of the night.
That's bro science. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's just someone looking at it and inferring causality when there's not necessarily.
Yes. All right.
Cool.
Nice way to end on a high note with statistics.
I know. It's always interesting.
Okay. For everybody who made it this far, awesome sauce. We didn't get to talk about any of the rioting or any of the other stuff. Partly by we had more interesting things to talk about as far as what we're really concerned with, and secondly, I really didn't want to talk about it. I mean, maybe later when we have more information and things calm down and we can really analyze things that have happened. But while we're in the midst of it, I'd prefer. I wish everybody, safe tidings. I hope everybody is safe and healthy during these times. It makes me sad. We didn't talk about the SpaceX launch either. That was a huge moment. A huge moment in human history. It's a huge moment in United States history. It was the first time in over a decade that we've sent people to our not our space station, the International Space Station from the United States. We've been using the Soyuz for the past 12 years now. 9 years? I thought it was over 10. I thought it was a decade.
2011 was when we officially disbanded the ship.
Oh, okay. I think
we stopped it before it was officially disbanded.
Yeah. So it was a big moment, and I'd like to talk about that again when they're home safe. But I hope it shows everybody that like when we work together, like that's not just an American endeavor. Like we've been working with international astronauts, ticonauts, cosmonauts.
Oh yeah.
We've been working with all those people for the past 30 years, and it really shows what humans can do when we all work together. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it really it means that. Like there's a lot of things that we can do individually, but there's some things we just can't. And going further out and adventuring into space, I hope it helps us realize like how small this little fucking rock is. That pale blue dot wasn't enough apparently in the 70s or in the 80s. And that picture of the pale blue dot wasn't enough. I hope
the picture from Mars of us just being a little tiny.
I hope with high res pictures with the video on YouTube of us when we go to Mars, I hope we realize like how important it is that we take care of each other here. This is the only, as of right now, this is the only one we got, and we fuck this up when we're done. Yep. I don't mean that in an environmental way. I don't mean that in like a humanity way. I just mean that like we have literally nowhere else to go, and there are 8 billion people on this fucking planet.
On a weird side note, I've never understood like the sci-fi premise of we messed up Earth, so we have to go terraform another planet. Like, if we have the technology to terraform a dead planet, couldn't we fix the Earth? Like that. So that's always boggled me. All right, yeah, that's a side note, but that's something that's always bothered me about science fiction stuff like that.
So the thing is, Ashley, we were watching the show The Expanse. It's really good. I love that show so much. Yeah, so I'm on the second season, and she's always been anti like go to Mars, not because she doesn't like it. She makes a very clear point every single time, and she said it again when we were watching The Expanse. She looks over at me and she says, "This is why we shouldn't be going to different planets and we shouldn't try to move to space." I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "Because we just bring our problems everywhere else. Like we haven't solved anything. We're just expanding and creating more issues." And I was like, hard to argue.
Yeah.
Hard to argue with that, given the climate that we're in, like the dichotomy of how tremendous of an achievement we can accomplish when we work together, yet we can't even figure out taking care of everyone who lives here. It sucks ass, man. It really does. And that's why one of the reasons I didn't talk about it, like I said, like this is mainly an MMA channel, and that's what we talk about mostly. But like we also talk about politics and other stuff. I just didn't feel like it. Like it makes me sad.
And I also really can't talk about politics much, so
I know you can't.
Kind of cuts off my half the conversation.
It's just
like
it
is
like,
a very relevant thing to be paying attention to.
Yeah,
no matter who you are.
I don't remember the last time my family sat around the TV and watched an event that humanity did together in awe. Like something like it felt like Apollo 11 to me. Like this is my Apollo 11. You know, I'm old enough to understand the context. I'm appreciate the ingenuity, appreciate the feats of engineering, the possibilities going forward, and at the same
launch people into space and recovered the booster. Like
yes,
like it wasn't just that we launched people to space. We did it for a fraction of the cost of what
that's the important
it was
part.
Done for, and we found a more sustainable way to do it, which is amazing.
And I want them to come home safe, and we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to go further, go back to the moon, set up a launching pad there, and launch from there. This is going to be amazing. And at the same time, at the same day, we sent Americans into space from the United States for the first time in forever. The same day, we're tearing apart everywhere we live, and we're oppressing people. We're treating people like we're not the same, even though. Like we all live in the exact same fucking place, man. Like even if you just isolate it to like your town or your city, like you guys, like we live in the same fucking place. Like let's take care of where we live and each other at all times. It just sucks. It really put a damper on my day yesterday. I was so happy, and then like I was like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a dour note. We made it to space again. I'm super happy about that. I'm so happy. Good job, Elon Musk. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I love that you exist. I really do. That guy makes me so happy. I don't agree with everything he says or does, but I love the fact that he exists. Crazy, eccentric billionaire, just willing to dump money into weird projects. I love it. Love it so much.
Oh, yeah.
More of that. Come on, Jeff Bezos. Quit being stingy. All right.
Well, if you made it all the way through to here, congratulations and thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah. I hope everybody's safe. I hope everybody has a great week. And get to enjoy some more fights next weekend. I'll be back after that to analyze that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Stay safe.